Greg Palast. How are you doing, my friend?
Okay, throw me something, mister. So how'd you like the Mardi Gras?
Oh, my God. It was amazing. It was fantastic. And I had a great... Have you been to New Orleans for Mardi Gras?
I worked for the city of New Orleans as an investigator of corporate fraud for a while. So one of my cities.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm sure you had your hands full, and I know a lot of folks know you for your investigative reports.
Chicago was a handful too.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I do want to learn more about you because I've heard you on Tom Hartman's show. I've heard you with Joan and with Richard Chu. So it's my turn. So I love the work that you do, and I know that for a lot of folks, it's heartbreaking to know what happened in this election. But first, I want to know more about you. Where did you grow up, my friend?
Well, I grew up in the anus of Los Angeles, in the poorest barrio of LA, still is, and reached escape velocity. Went to the University of Chicago and studied under that dwarf fascist Milton Friedman. Then taught at the University of Indiana statistics and economics, and then went off to become an investigator for the Justice Department. Then a journalist for The Guardian, BBC Television, and the Rolling Stone. Using my investigative skills, and I ended up, while doing a lot of corporate fraud work and taking on in Chicago, taking on ComEd and People's Gas. But now, for 25 years, one of my main beats has been what we politely call vote suppression, which when I was lecturing at Harvard, I said the definition is effing black people out of their votes, and that's what it comes down to. It's about the Jim Crow operation in our voting system, and that's what elected Donald Trump. And if you've been from the other program, so what I used to do for the Justice Department, and then later for the Guardian, is actually do the statistical analysis and actually calculate these things. And I did a very careful calculation of what are the effects of Jim Crow on the last election. And it's a pretty good one that I've taken into federal court with the NAACP and the Reverend Jesse Jackson going into federal court. Jim Crow tactics won Donald Trump 3,565,000 votes. Which gave him the popular vote by 1.25 million, but also handed him Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And so the White House is only his because of his Jim Crow tactics, which I can explain. And here's the danger. You can see my article, Trump lost, vote suppression won. Here are the numbers, but I also have another one, how they are already stealing 2026 as these tactics get worse. So, leaving you with that sad note, and the only reason I'm laughing is because I don't want to cry. Yep. But I can tell you, talking to the Reverend Jackson, who's heading off at this moment to Selma. It's the 60th anniversary of the Selma March, and they can't steal all the votes all the time. We can win. We can overcome the theft. I'm not partisan. I'm a journalist. But I'm telling you that it's the GOP using these ugly racist tactics that I'm... In fact, I just did a film, and then I'll stop the filibuster.
No, we're all in, my friend. Go on.
Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen, which was actually premiered at Rainbow Push here in Chicago, and then Leonardo DiCaprio, bless him, with Jamie Foxx has made it available for free, the film, because they think it's important. If you go to gregpalast.com, that's GregPalast.com, and you can stream the film for gratis. And what Vigilantes Inc. is about is these vote suppression techniques, including something brand new. I shouldn't say brand new because I'll explain. An old Klan tactic. In 1946, the Ku Klux Klan set out to challenge members of the Klan, to challenge every black voter in Georgia. They were successful enough to elect a Klansman as governor, who was about Gene Talmadge is about to get arrested by the FBI because this is against the law. but he drank himself to death just before he was cuffed. I kid you not. And but now in 2024, Donald Trump front groups resurrected the Klan plan, and for the first time in over half a century, in fact, almost 80 years, black people were being challenged en masse, not by the government. This is important to understand. It's hard for people to wrap their heads on this. Challenged by individuals. I can say Patti Vasquez doesn't live in Chicago. She shouldn't be allowed to vote in Illinois. Now, who is Greg Palast to say that? Well, I could be, a Klansman or except now they switch their white sheets to spreadsheets. These are literally self-appointed vigilante vote hunters, and under the laws of 24 states, leftover Jim Crow laws from the 40s and 50s, an individual can challenge another individual's right to vote, and they're doing it en masse. By August of last year, before the election, one organization, True the Vote, a Trump front group, proudly announced that it had challenged already 317,886 voters. We have their lists, almost entirely voters of color, saying that, and every single one of these was a false claim, and they were targeting, ready for this, these great patriots, the GOP, targeting black soldiers. So if you're assigned, for example, Major Gamaliel Turner, I just got off the phone with the major, career military, 70 years old, career military. This guy was assigned from Georgia to base in California, and the chairman of the Georgia GOP in southern Georgia challenged his right to vote, saying he didn't live in Georgia. A black soldier denied his ballot. And this one guy challenged 4,000 people. And if you watch, you'll meet him in my film. We have the major confront the guy that challenged him, this vigilante. And I confront a woman. You'll see in Vigilantes, Inc. I confront a woman, a GOP operative, works for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She personally challenged 32,000 voters. This is how Trump took Georgia. And the challenges are also mounted in Pennsylvania. There are other tricks that they use. Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, there was this massive wipeout of voters of color in those states, and that's what gave Donald Trump the presidency.
Now, I know a lot of our listeners have been having these conversations and hearing the work that you've done and exposing all of this. I think what makes a lot of people crazy, is then, how are they not held accountable? If we have all this information, if we know that this is happening, why can't we stop them? And why can't we hold them, accountable and have justice?
Okay. Have you noticed? Well, we don't have justice. We now have an injustice department. We used to have a Justice Department. We used to have an FBI. Now we've got Kash Patel and the Injustice Department. There was a Civil Rights Division that's supposed to be the voting cops. It's now the Civil Wrongs Division. And I will say, there was, I don't know what happened, maybe something in the air vents or the system. Under Biden, of course, the voting rights activity of the Justice Department was in a coma. They did nothing. And so what happens is
that part.
That's what's heartbreaking. And one of the things that happens is that, however, I have done besides my journalism, which you could read my reports and my films and watch me running around chasing people in my fedora, I do technical stuff. So I wrote a technical report for the ACLU and then the voting rights groups, including Reverend Jackson's lawyers and NAACP of Georgia. Black Voters Matter Fund went to federal court, and we've had quite a bit of success. I've successfully sued the governor of Georgia. I went to Wisconsin. The only reason Biden took Wisconsin 4 years ago was that they were about to wipe out 130,000 voters through a purge of the voter rolls. and I teamed up with the experts that work with Amazon U.S. Postal Service. We went through every single name on the purge list, and almost none of them were voters who should have been removed. But what was suspicious is that almost everyone, we mapped it, was in a black precinct in Milwaukee or student housing in Madison. This is the games, and we were able to stop it 4 years ago. We couldn't stop it in 2024 as Republicans had more influence in Wisconsin.
Right. Well, and again, it's maddening for folks to know, because it's the whole every accusation is a confession, yelling that the elections are rigged while you are doing the work and uncovering all of this. It's got to be absolutely insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Trump is right. The election was rigged. He and his cronies rigged it. And that's one of the problems, is that a lot of the U.S. media will do stories on vote suppression tactics, like, the voter IDs, purges, et cetera. In fact, both, and even vigilante work. And the New York Times has covered my work, so has Washington Post. But after the election, they won't ever say, remember we told you about hundreds of thousands of people purged in Georgia? We never told you about the vigilante challenges. Remember we told you about defective ID? They never go after the election and say, well, did that change the election? They never do that. And it's time that we say, the reason Republicans do these things is because that's how they win elections. They do it for a reason. And what the problem we had was when Joe Biden, and I don't like to make fun of the cognitively impaired, but Biden said anyone who challenges the results of a U.S. election is undermining democracy. Well, when you remove Major Turner from the voter rolls because he's a black soldier assigned to another base, I'm sorry. That's how you rig elections. That is a rigged election. Trump lost, if not for these tactics. And we have to do something about it. So we will. Don't count on the parties. Don't count on the government, and certainly not this government.
So when you say that...
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Please. No, please. I want more.
I want to give you hope. Like I said, we were able to stop the purge in 2020 in Wisconsin. Black Voters Matter Fund. People should... You want to be helpful? Join Black Voters Matter. You don't have to be black. You just have to believe that black voters matter. The ACLU is helpful. Rainbow Push. Hey, if you're in Chicago and you're not going down to Rainbow Push headquarters and say, what can I do? Then don't complain. This is what we need you to do. It's the 99% versus the 1%. We got the numbers. They've got the cash. But
right.
We can do this. We can protect the vote. And you know what? If Trump won fair and square, I'd say, okay, that's democracy. But when you do it through these, Musk and Mr. Afrikaner, Mr. Apartheid, Mr. Illegal Alien is running our system, I'm sorry. We have to stand up and not despair.
Well, and that actually brings up something else, because you were talking about how you've worked as you've done investigative work when it comes to corruption. Mm-hmm. Would you ever in your wildest dreams think that we would have people going into our computer systems, getting all that data, who were essentially 19, 20, 22-year-old kids with no experience of being forensic accountants or any investigative skills whatsoever? I mean, what madness is this in Doge?
Yeah, I mean, I work for the Justice Department. If I said I want to see the Social Security files, they'd say, no, we're going to arrest you. You try that, buddy. And instead, and here's what I'm really worried about, especially with AI. These guys, for example, Agent Orange last night, Musk's vice president gave that speech last night and said... and started talking about 31 million people on Social Security rolls who are dead or don't exist or whatever. Well, go arrest 31 of them. I'm just asking you to arrest 1 in a million. You mean you can't find, with the great Kash Patel and the FBI, you can't find 31 out of 31 million people getting checks they shouldn't? Go arrest them. They keep talking about fraudulent illegal alien voters. The Heritage Foundation, which came up with Project 2025, said that there are between 500,000 and 1.5 million illegal alien voters registered by the Democratic Party. So if there's 1 million of them, tell you what, give me 10 names. I have actually called them to say, just give me 10 of the names. By the way, if they're illegal voters, I'll go and arrest them. I just want 10 names out of a million. And if they're registered to vote, you have their names and addresses. I mean, all these illegal aliens that try to, that always go and register to vote. And by the way, if you are an undocumented alien, you vote in an American election, that's 10 years in the hoosegow, followed by deportation. And so one of the ugly things that they're trying to do right now is called the SAVE Act. Patty, you won't like this.
I know. Go ahead. I didn't take my husband's name, but that doesn't mean that we're not all in danger. Go ahead.
Yes. So the SAVE Act will require you not only when you register, but when you re-register. 31 million people a year re-register because you move counties, you change your name, whatever, or register for the first time. 31 million people are going to have to prove they are citizens. Now, you'd say, well, of course, only citizens should vote. But let me ask you a question. Proof of citizenship, basically there are two documents, a passport and your original, not a copy, your original birth certificate. Now, who has passports in America? Only about 12% of Americans have passports, and they tend to be of the whitish persuasion and the richest persuasion. And how many of you can find your original birth certificate? And by the way, ladies who took their husband's name, well, go ahead and re-register. If you don't have a passport and you don't have you need that official document with your name on, a marriage certificate, driver's license, military ID, that is not proof of citizenship, not in America. And so good luck registering. So this is what's coming up on the horizon, and they know what the effect will be, a massive training of the voter rolls by lower-income people, people of color, and women.
Yeah. No, it's absolute madness, and this is something you touched on under President Biden, that there was a complacency, and so we've gotten here through complacency in some ways, haven't we?
Yes, and so we've had a tremendous problem in getting the attention of the federal government, no matter who's in power. I mean, right now you actually have hostile, aggressive action against voters, especially voters of color, but when the Democrats are in, we have not seen since in many years an aggressive action to protect voters. So, for example, when the ACLU and myself, using my investigative records, were fighting a purge system called interstate crosscheck, which we did get killed off, and one of the guys who really screamed about it was Bernie Sanders, I will say, and who's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, by the way. You don't have to. There's no color line. There's no apartheid in the Black Caucus. It doesn't have to be a particular color. But we got. Not only did we get help from the Obama administration, but Obama endorsed this racist purge system, and because he formed a little committee and put right-wing Republicans on it, who convinced the weakling Democrats to go along with this stuff. So don't count on government or political parties to save your vote. We do it. We can do it. We've done it. We need you to get active. And one personal bit of advice, 80 days, 90 days before an election, please check your registration, see if you've been purged. And here's the nice thing, if you're listening in Wisconsin or Illinois, they now allow you to register on Election Day. So if you show up and they say you can't vote because you've been removed from the voter roll, make sure you have photo ID, proof of address. Say, I will register then right now. They usually don't tell you can, but people of Wisconsin, people of Illinois, you can register on Election Day right there. So please do so.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. I think being informed is going to be a big part of it. You mentioned also getting involved and showing up at places like Rainbow Push. What other kinds of advocacy can we do for voters to make sure that they're on the rolls and their vote is protected?
Well, one thing Black Voters Matter did, and a wonderful Hispanic organizations like complex name Southwest Voter Registration Education organization, and they made 150,000 phone calls to purged voters, Latino purged voters in Spanish and English saying, you've got to re-register. You have been purged. We have to get – so Black Voters Matter Fund sent out tens of thousands of postcards telling people they had to re-register. That was focusing on Georgia, which is how Georgia turned blue. And it will only turn red because they just cranked up the attacks on the voters of color. They purged 875,000 people. 1 in 6 voters lost their vote in Georgia before the federal election. And that, by the way, these numbers come from the states and from the federal government. They actually put out these numbers. I just know where to look for them. And so you can join these organizations. We need not only registration drives, we need re-registration drives. So if you join these organizations, say, I will go to people's homes, get them re-registered. I will contact people to reverse the challenges and to challenge the challengers. We've had the only reason Biden was able to win 2020, not only did we go into federal court, but we had billboards with the narrator of my film is Rosario Dawson, the wonderful Rosario, and we also put out billboards all over the city, big electronic billboards above Atlanta saying, you could be purged, check your registration. We ran a massive campaign to get people re-registered, and that's how Biden was able to win Georgia in 2020, which shocked people. It didn't shock Georgians. They knew the votes were there. You just had to get them out of chains.
Yeah, unbelievable! Such great work, and I know we're all grateful. Go ahead, Greg.
No, it's okay. So, and you know, we also have to. I also tell people very important. One of the big issues we have to deal with now. If you're a Democrat, you're 51% more likely to mail in your vote, which is why there's been a massive attack on mail-in balloting. And so, for example, 10 states, according to the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU, those are terrific people, stay in contact with them. The Brennan Center noted that 34 laws have been passed in 20 mostly red states that are restricting voting. 10 of those laws specifically are shuttering ballot drop boxes, which are favored by African-American residents in places like Atlanta and Houston. Those are now shuttered by law to make it harder for black people to vote. So then you have to rely on the post office to get your mail-in ballot. And, you know, Agent Orange is about to privatize it. It was already slowed down, but now good luck. Don't mail in your ballot if you can avoid it. I'm a journalist always on the road. I have to mail in my ballot. And if you can, vote in person early. So if there's a problem, you can fix it, including registering on the spot. There's about 18 states now that let you register on Election Day. So get ready. There's other things. In the 2024 election, 1,216,000 ballots, provisional ballots, were rejected. What's a provisional ballot? If you show up and your name's on the voter roll, a little lady behind the desk says, just fill out this ballot and put it in this envelope. They'll count it later. No, they won't. Nope. According to the federal government, 42.3%, that's close to half of the provisional ballots, are never counted. And if it weren't biased, it wouldn't matter. That's federal government number. Federal government also noted that you're 300% more likely to be shifted to one of these provisional ballots, which don't get counted. 300% more likely to be shunted to that ballot if you're black, Hispanic, or Asian American. And here's the number that should really shock you. We have mail-in ballots, 2.1 million mail-in ballots were rejected in the last election. 2 million ballots. And according to the state of Washington study, you're 400% more likely to have your ballot rejected if you are black than if you are white. How about that? And if your ballot, in-person ballot, is rejected, and there's about over 500,000 of those in the last election, the chance your ballot will be rejected is 900% higher if you're black than if you're white. And that's Alan. I want to credit that to Professor Alan Lichtman, who is working with the United States Civil Rights Commission. So these are all government numbers. These are all numbers from major academic studies. And like I say, when I went through the purge list, I went through literally every single name with the computer experts. So we weren't sampling. And, so that's where we were able to find this massive attack on the voter rolls through these illegal purges of voters. So that's the grim news. But again, they can't steal all the votes all the time. The reason why Reverend Jackson
I guess that's positive.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's reminding people, one, motivating them, because one thing we had, while Harris would have gotten 3.5 million more votes if it weren't for these tactics, there was still a massive drop in turnout. There's no way to get around that fact. Massive drop in turnout. So you had a lot of people stealing their own vote. Don't suppress your own vote by not voting.
Nope.
Nope.
Get out there. I agree.
I know that it's not always an inspiring choice of candidates, but you know what? I'm going to tell you something, Patty. You can't go into McDonald's and order sushi. There's only so many things on the menu. We got Democrats and Republicans. Make a choice. Sorry about that. That's the menu. It may not be a healthy menu, but that's your menu. Make a decision. Make a choice, because the consequences, as we are finding out now, are severe.
Yep.
If you don't
Greg
vote,
Palast, man.
Don't complain.
Greg Palast, we thank you for all. I know that our listeners are grateful. They may not want to take the medicine, but to be informed is to be ready and prepared for action. Again, go to gregpalast.com. Is your film available on your website, Vigilantes Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitman? Excellent. Thank you. And again, produced by
Martin.
Excellent. And produced by Martin Sheen. Leonardo DiCaprio has also released a film for free. So, and again, narrated by Rosario Dawson. I know that Jamie Foxx is involved and helped make that possible. Greg, as always, thank you for keeping us informed while also, a little bit depressed. But, hey, you brought some hope with it, too. So thank you so much for all of that. GregPalast.com.
And thanks to CPT. This is our station, man. You won't hear this anywhere else. So that's an unsolicited commercial. You can quote it anytime. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Safe travels, my friend. Hope to see you soon. Next time you're in town.
Bye.
Thank you.